Looking at the rest of these statements in the statements folder, so the square dashboard, the Moneris statement, those are going to help us reconcile the POS clearing account and the square clearing account. And then the other statements here, we've got the Canada Bank checking, savings, and line of credit. So before we get to the other statements in the statement folder, we need to go back to QBO and make sure that we've cleared the bank feeds for the week. So let's go back to QBO. And we'll go to bank transactions. And let us start first with the credit card. So let's go ahead. And what I usually do is I say June 30th, June 30th. We can't quite see the date there. There we go. June 30th. Signs and wonders, signs and wonders. So what this is that's regarding the email communication about signs and wonders, giving a refund for the overpayment. So I'm just going to check this off. If I were to hit match, it does this little thinky thing. It doesn't take too long, but I find that look, all of these are going to be nice and quick and easy. So just checking it off is just a tiny bit quicker. Every bit helps. July 1st, Go Tele. That just says communications, but if you hover, you can see that actually Go Telecommunications is the full name. We don't need to double check the amount because QuickBooks wouldn't offer up a match if the amount didn't match. So I'll just click a check. Daddy Go, July 3rd, Daddy Go. July 3rd, Daddy Go, July 3rd, Daddy Go. And July 4th, Waterstone, July 4th, Waterstone. So now I can just click match and it'll match all of the ones that I checked off all at once. So next, let's move over to the banks. I'm going to do the line of credit next. So taking a look at the line of credit, we can see July 2nd, there's an e-transfer received, and we've put in July 2nd, that expense. If you remember, we used Dext to put in that e-transfer. So instead of it being a transfer, it's entered as an expense entry, but it was still moving funds from the Canada Bank checking over to the CIBT line of credit. So I'm going to check that one off. And now we can see that we've got some rules lined up. So for life insurance charged, we set up a rule that the vendor name is CIBT and there's no HST, and we're just going to put that to interest expense. So I did discuss why I'm putting this life insurance to interest expense. Even though it is a type of insurance, it's covering the balance of the line of credit. So putting that to line of credit insurance, for example, would be completely fine as well. But I did discuss how life insurance, if the beneficiary is somebody other than something related to the business, it's not actually a claimable expense for the business. But this insurance specifically, it's related only to the line of credit. So if the business owner dies, this insurance pays off the line of credit that is 100% used for business. So I'm just bulking that expense into interest expense. So we're going to check that one off because the rule looks good. PST is not a claimable, GST, HST, ITC, you put the PST into whatever the thing is that you're purchasing. So in this case, we've put that to interest also. And then of course, interest is interest. So let's click that one off as well. So we can go ahead and put those all in together. So that was the line of credit. And let's keep moving up to the next most used. So that would be the Canada Bank savings. We end on the operating account, right? We start with the credit cards and we go to the savings just because of all the different payments and transfers. If we're seeing it first from the smaller accounts, it makes reconciling the larger account a lot easier. So here we are in the Canada Bank savings. We can see that we've actually earned interest on the balance in the savings account. And QBO has suggested interest earned, and I would agree. But it hasn't lined up the name. So why don't we create a rule so that next time Canada Bank Saving charges us a deposit or gives us deposit interest, that we're actually saying that this is coming from Canada Bank, the supplier. So if I expand that out, I've lined it up. It's a deposit, interest earned. Oh, sales tax is zero rate. Sales tax is exempt, and it's from Canada Bank. And let's go ahead and create the rule. and then we'll say CB for Canada Bank savings deposit interest. Money in, deposit interest, everything that we've lined up. I don't like to replace the bank memo because if they change that, I want to see what it changes, and I don't want to auto-at. I want to see it each time. It's pretty quick to pop in from the rule when we see it. So I'm going to hit save. And so now there's a rule, and we can go ahead and we'll just post that so I can talk about this pair. Now, we have not entered any transfer into Canada Bank savings. So we haven't received any paperwork to say where this transfer is from. We, right now, do not know. It could be from the owner's account, right? $500 could be transferred into the savings from the owner's account. We don't know yet. QBO, though, has a guess. It is suggesting a pair. Now, the reason that QBO is guessing, the reason it is suggesting this pair is because it has access to both bank feeds. It sees that there's a deposit of $500 on July 2nd into one bank feed, and on the other bank feed, it sees something that it can pair it to. And it does sometimes look a day or two before and after because sometimes the transfer does take a day or two to go through. And we can see what it's suggesting. So let's expand this out, and it's suggesting, and I like to have eyes on it because sometimes it's suggesting something that's incorrect, right? And we can see that it's suggesting to pair it, that is, put in a transfer and marry both bank feed items for us. It wants to pair it with this July 2nd transfer out on the Canada Bank checking. Now, it doesn't read the bank description. That's an important note, but we can see it. And in the case of Canada Bank, and remember, every bank is different, but in the case of Canada Bank, which is very similar to Royal Bank, is that there's a transfer number, 4321. Now, this doesn't mean what account it's coming from. Some banks I have seen do say in the transfer what the account number is that it's coming from if it's within the same account family, owner, so on and so forth. So depending on the business that you're working in or on, that can be your clue. So perhaps for your business that you're working in or on, the bank feed does say the name of the account it's coming from, but don't assume that, confirm that, right? Check into these things so that you're confident. In the case of Canada Bank, each transfer has a different number, and you can see that that transfer number matches on the Canada Bank checking. So there's a transfer out with a transfer number 4321 and a transfer coming in 4321. So in this case, I can actually feel confident in saying, yes, this transfer in actually is related to this transfer out, right? That's how I can tell. Now, I just want to also quickly illustrate why we're doing Canada Bank savings, the smaller accounts, the lines of credits, the credit cards, before the main busy operating account. Let's hop on over and take a look. So let's scroll down to the June 2nd, and you can see that we have this transfer 4321 from the Canada Bank perspective is not offering us up a pairing. It's guiding us to match a bank info line to its wrong QBO transaction. This is not its soulmate. That's what I mean to say when we want to pair our bank info lines with our QBO transaction entries. They have to be soulmates. And even though it looks like they're, a good match, they're not soulmates. What happened here is this e-transfer that we entered as a QBO transaction, as we got a piece of paper that said Sarah e-transferred $500 from her Canada Bank checking over to her CIBT line of credit, and we were able to enter that in. We entered it in from Dext as an expense entry, meaning to say Canada Bank goes down and the category is CIBT line of credit. So it functionally works the same as a transfer. And here's that entry that we put in. And QBO sees two transfers for $500. And because of that, when you've got transfers of the same amount multiple times, that pairing can start to falter. It can get a little confused. In fact, I have noticed in the past, and QBO does keep changing their bank feed, that if there's more than 1,500 on the Canada Bank, it doesn't even offer up a pair. So I have noticed that in the past, but I wonder if this new AI bank feed went a little further into understanding. I'm not sure. But this is why I start with the smaller accounts and work my way up to the operating account. We're in the Canada Bank checking now, and we can see that the very same QBO transaction item is offered up twice to be married to either this one or this one, and we have to decide which one is the soulmate. You might say, we just entered it though, Naomi, on the CIBT credit line. Let me open this up and show you what that looks like. Here's the expense that we entered. And remember, if it's a transfer, and this is an expense screen way of entering a transfer, but if there's a transfer, if the transaction entry is hitting up two accounts, Canada Bank checking and CIBT line of credit, that both have a bank feed, you want to see that transaction married to two bank feeds. And this one right now is only married to the CIBT, this category here. It's only married to the CIBT bank feed. We need to also marry it to the Canada Bank checking. So let's close that. And we don't want to marry this QBO transaction to this transfer bank info line. That's not its soulmate. We want to marry it to this e-transfer send. So I'm going to go ahead and hit match, and let's see what happens. Now this transfer, it's not offering up a pair. I'm going to refresh and see if it now knows to offer it up as a pair. Okay, so we've refreshed. Let's come down, and now it is. It's now having an easier time to see that it's a pair. And we might have been pushed because of the order that these were in to marry it to the wrong line item if we had started with the operating account. But because we started with Canada Bank checking, you can see how it's much easier to put in these transfers from the smaller accounts first and then work our way to the bigger account. So here we are, we're in Canada Bank Savings, and it wants to offer up this pair. And I really want to hit categorize, but that's just the toggle. I have to move this over. There's the post. That's the key. That's what we want to hit. So we're going to hit post. And let's just see what happened with that transfer. Here it is. It got entered. And now we can see it is married to both the transfer in on the savings account and the transfer out on the Canada Bank checking. And if we go over to the Canada Bank checking to go and take a look, we can see that it is no longer on this bank feed. So that's what pair does. It sort of says, hey, I think it's this. You can't always trust it, but once you can confirm it, once you go ahead and say post that pair, it puts in the one transfer, marries both bank feed info lines, and clears them off the deck for you. So that is it for the Canada Bank Savings. We've done the credit cards and the smaller accounts. Now we can go to the main operating account. Just to remind you, if we head over to posted, you'll see that all of the Moneris deposits have automatically been posted for us. We didn't even see them, so that's part of why I generally don't like to have the auto add rules, but there's a lot of Moneris deposits, so that's the only one I ever set to auto add generally. And we can go ahead and do that new hack that we talked about last week for clearing the bank feed. The first thing we can do is we could say, just show me the rules. And we can glance at these rules and make sure that we're happy with them and that nothing really jumps out at us as maybe, oh, wow, the e-transfer fee jumped up to $15, or maybe some rule that we've created that maybe is capturing something incorrectly. But we can see it all pretty quickly right here. Yes, the Interact fee looks good. Monthly fee, there's that deposit from Square. And we've got two Moneris fees sort of set up and ready to go through. So we'll go ahead and post all of those. And then what we can do is next, we could just say, show me the suggested matches, because the next thing that I generally do is confirm the things that I know. But my style is I actually like to see things in context. So if you remember, there was that bounced check. The bounce was an unknown match, even though the payment before it bounced was seemed seemed as if it was obvious. So I generally do like to still do this first, but look at it in context around all of the transactions. So let's start going through it. I like to look at the date and then the name. So this says June 30th, this says June 30th. There's no name, but it says e-transfer, and I put e-transfer in the bill payment number. And just a side note, you might remember that Sarah had sent us a Chocoholics Nomnominous bill with the note paid by e-transfer. And we went over to the bank feed just to make sure that that amount was e-transferred out as she had said, but actually the amount e-transferred out was greater than what she had, than what that bill amount was. And upon further investigation, we saw that actually Chocoholics Nomnominous had 2 outstanding bills. And what she actually meant by that note is she paid them the balance by e-transfer on June 30th. And I'm just pointing that out now in case you didn't see that part of the video and you were just sort of stuck on what this e-transfer amount was and how we figured that out. So, yep. We're happy to add that one. Moving on to the other matches it sees, we've got this check on July 3rd, check 23, and right here we do have bill payment 23. I put the check number in, but the date is June 25th. But it's a check, so that makes sense, right? The day you write the check is not necessarily the date that the check clears the bank. It's got to be put in the mail, and then the recipient has to take it to the bank or do what they need to do with it to process it. So we don't need to change the date of the check. The check, that was the day it was dated, and this was the day it went through. So yep, that's we're going to marry that bank info line to that QBO transaction. Next, we've got July 3rd, Home Depot, and right here, July 3rd, Home Depot. So I'm happy with that one. And here we go. We've got GNOME Hardware on July 4th, and we entered that bill payment in to GNOME Hardware from July 4th. And again, we saw the GNOME Hardware statement in the statements folder where Sarah had said, I paid $1,000 on account by debit. So that's where we put that one in from. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yep. So I've checked off the ones I'm happy with. I can just hit match and it'll do it all at once for me. Now we're left with our lonely singles. So looking at this first lonely single, we don't have the July bank statement yet, which shows us the cleared checks. So we could leave that one on there until we got the bank statement in so we could see who the check was written to. But this is something that happens every single month. And we'll see that it is right at the beginning of the month, check 04. We just cleared check 23. So this sort of indicates to me that it might be a post-dated check. And the way we can also investigate is, has this happened before? So by searching that amount, we'll go search and then go to posted. And sure enough, we can see check number 2 cleared on May 1st, check number 3 cleared on June 2nd, and that was Potts Properties rent expense that has HST in it because commercial rent has HST. So I've got a high degree of certainty that that is what this one is. Now, the reason I haven't set up a rule about that is because what if Sarah bought something else for $3,000 plus HST? And then the rule might say, oh, a check for $3,000 plus HST, that's going to be rent every time. It might not be. So we have a high degree of certainty because it's the first of the month, and also it's a super early check number, like a post-dated set of checks given out. So that is why I haven't created the rule, but we do have a high degree of certainty that that is what this is. So let's go ahead and put it in. There is HST on commercial rent, and this was Potts Properties like this. And I'm just going to go ahead and it's guest rent expense, and so we're going to go ahead and post. So let's get rid of the search. We've got 2 left, and these are Moneris fees. This is the fee related to Visa. When we put in those other cleared the rules, when we did all the rules together, it had the debit credit fee and it had the MasterCard fee, but there was no debit credits or MasterCards in May, so that's why in June we didn't see any Visa fees come through. But when the Moneris card machine got started at the very end of May, there was no Visa, so there was no Visa fees for us to set up a rule yet. So this is a new one. And I can tell it's Moneris because of that number right there. If I put that into the search and then we go and look at posted, there you can see that The full bank description here has that number, but all of these rules are all related to Moneris. That is, every time I see that number, I know that it's related to something to do with Moneris. So Visa fee, that's to do with the credit card processing payments for Visa. Let's go ahead and add this rule together. The way we add a rule is we line it up. So this is payment processing fees. And to from, that is Moneris is the name. I always like to have a name. And when we've lined it all up, we can go ahead and create rule. And I'm going to call this the Visa Moneris fee. And so basically every time it sees that, it's going to line it up for us. 0 rated, I guess it's technically more exempt, but they're both 0, so it's fine. And I don't want it to replace the bank memo moving forward. I want it to always use the existing one. So I'm going to delete that so that it always just uses the existing one. And I'm not going to auto add yet. Now, in this case study, Sarah is a smaller business, and so these smaller amounts are just charged at the end of the month. This is actually the beginning of the next month, but it's once a month that they're being charged. But if the business is bigger and their gross sales are bigger, generally these Visa and MasterCard fees, they're going to be charged every day, so that like not a huge amount piles up, because payment processing, the Visa and credit cards can get pretty high. It can get in the thousands, right? And so that businesses aren't on the hook to pay thousands at the end of the month, these are often for larger businesses every single day, just like how the debit credit deposits go in every day, then another charge goes in of all of the Visa and MasterCard fees every day as well. So when that happens, that's another 60 transactions a month. Then I would go ahead and put auto add for that one as well. So still related to the debit credit processing machine, but because this is just once a month, I'm not going to go ahead and auto add this one. So let's go ahead and save. And now this time it happens to show the rule. That's fine. We're going to go ahead and post. Now I skipped the Moneris one. Basically, I was going right to the Visa to say, well, we've put in MasterCard and debit. This is just the Visa one. A lot of people will just put this Moneris one in too, but this is Moneris's like actual Moneris fee. And there might be, or might not be, HST in this. It might or might not be 13% backed out. And this is because the Moneris fee includes things like device rental, like the debit credit machine that you use to process the credit cards is generally still owned by like the company, whether it's Moneris or TD Merchant or Clover, or Square. There's like a whole bunch of them. Actually, Square, do you buy them? I don't know. Everybody's a little bit different, but you don't know. This fee might actually have HST in it. So to know that, we actually need to have a look at the Moneris statement. Now, if you don't have access to the Moneris statement, I wouldn't assume there's HST in it because you just don't know. It might be worth making the effort to ask the business owner, or if you are the business owner, to dig out that Moneris statement just to see what the HST is. In this case, Sarah did supply the Moneris statement. It's in the statements folder. So let's open that up right now. Here it is. And let's talk about how confusing they can be. Now, I often find the payment processing merchant statements very convoluted. They can actually sometimes be very challenging to find the information that you need off of them. But if you persevere, you can sort it out. So I have a Moneris one here. We're going to take a closer look at it when we do the Moneris or the POS clearing reconciliation. But right now we're just working on the bank feed, and we want to know, is there HST on that Moneris fee? So what we're going to do is we're going to try and find that amount or the HST or something to that manner on this Moneris statement. And to remind us, it is $84.69 on July 2nd. So this is the June statement. So it might be on the June statement, it might be on the July statement, but this is the one that's provided. So let's take a closer look. So the totals aren't going to help us, and all of the different rates for all the different cards, that's not going to help us. I'm keeping my eye out for anything that says Moneris fees or HST, and I don't see that there. So here's transaction fees. I don't see anything there. Here's some service fees. And just a heads up, spoiler alert, I made the statement so I know, but this is the portion that has HST in it. The device rental, the account service, and the Moneris Go software, all of these, they actually have HST on them, but for some reason, Moneris is not showing the HST on their service fees. So I had to actually figure that out from like an actual Moneris statement that I changed. And I had to sort of figure it out backwards, which is what I found frustrating. But you don't need to figure that out. We need to find out where it actually says HST. That's when we can claim it. So we're scrolling down. Nothing mentioning HST here at all. Still can't see HST. So here's the daily activity summary. There's nothing really about HST here either. We're going to keep scrolling down. Now here we are at the financial details, and oh, I see the term GST, HST. And the financial details actually, in Moneris's case, tend to correlate with what goes on in the actual bank. So, and it doesn't necessarily match the totals of the daily activity, because the daily activity mentions fees that are maybe charged at a different time. Anyway, all that to say is we found the words GST, HST, so we can scroll down and see if there's any GST or HST on any of these transactions, and there is. Just on this last one right here, the service fees, now it's dated June 30th because it's the service fees for the month of June, but they happen to be charged the next day, which is July 1st. Is a holiday, so the next business day. So that was July 2nd. So actually, this $84.69 is a combination of these service fees plus HST. And we can see that the HST is $974. Now, in this case, that is 13% of the $84.69, but it isn't always. It depends on the way that Moneris is deciding to charge those transactions, or maybe Clover does it differently. Like, you just don't know. You want to see it to believe it. Remember that. So let's go ahead and put in this Moneris charge with the HST. So I'll expand this out. This is the processing fees. And this one has HST, and then we'll say Moneris. I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to create a rule because I'm not sure if it's going to be 13% every single month. One thing I can do is I can sort of track it month over month till I see a pattern and maybe then make that assumption. I'm going to go ahead and post this. So now that we've added that, let's go and just make sure that it did put in the 974. Now it did put in 974. In this case, it was 13%. But if, as per your statement, it is a smaller or lower HST amount, you need to jump in and change that and then save and close. So let's get rid of that search. And we have now cleared all of the banks for June. So after recording the bank feed clearing segment of the case study run through, I realized that I didn't actually have the loan payment in the bank feed download data. So I've uploaded that in the case study. And now let's take a look at what we would do with this line item on the bank feed. Now, this loan payment is regarding the truck that Sarah purchased for the business in the beginning of June. And we did attach that truck purchase paperwork to the asset purchase entry in QBO. But let me show you where it is also on the case study documents. So if we were to go back to the first week of June, and we'll go to the bills. Here we'll find both the truck purchase and also that loan amortization spreadsheet. And this is where that's going to come into play. So let's pull up the purchase. And here is where we'll find the loan agreement as well for this Fjord truck. And we can see that the first of the monthly payments is due on July 3rd for $686.18. Now, it does not show the amortization. That is, it doesn't show the portion of each payment's principal and interest on this agreement. Some do, not very many. And there's a couple of ways that we can get to that. One way is to just ask Car Automotive for the amortization schedule for the loan. Another way is we can plug in the numbers into our amortization calculator that I did include in the case study. So let's pull that up now. So we did this back in week 1 of June. We put in the loan amount here, and then we put in that annual interest rate, how many years the loan was, how many payments per year, so whether it was monthly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, and the start date of the loan. We got that information from here where it said that the annual loan was right here, the balance of the loan, the amount financed, sorry, right here is the balance of the loan. And then 84 months is how I knew that it was a 7-year loan, and it does say monthly, so that would be 12 payments a year. And so with that, you can see that it calculated for this $686.16 payment, the first one that we're seeing in July, the principal or the amount to, like the amount borrowed, reducing how much was borrowed, is $501.41, but the interest portion is $184.77. And that changes each time because the interest is calculated on the balance. So if the balance is going down, the interest is going to change. And you can see here, there's a bit of a graph that shows you that change over time. But this right here, this is the information that we're going to need to put in the entry that we see for the loan payment on the bank feed. So I'll pull that over. So here we are back at the bank feed. We have a couple of options for putting this in. We could do it the big screen way by going new and then adding an expense entry, or we can actually use the bank feed shortcut way even though we're doing more than one category or GL account in the tummy of the entry. And we do that using the split option. So let's expand this out. And if we scroll down, we can see that we actually have a split option right here. And if I click that split option, now this gives us access to putting in more than one category, and we can split it more than just 2, but we only need 2 today. So this was Car Credit Services. So this is the financer. So this isn't Car, the auto salespeople. This is the finance company. And the first one we're going to put towards the principal of the loan. And so we made a loan account specific to this loan, so that's important. And the principal amount from this spreadsheet is $501.41, and the interest portion is $184.77. So I'm going to put that in, $501.41. Now there's no HST on loan payments. When we did the lease expense, there was HST on the lease, and a capital lease is like a fancy form of financing. But in this case, the truck was purchased in Sarah's name, the business's name if it's a corporation, right? But Sarah's a sole prop. So Sarah purchased the truck, and now she has a loan with a financing company. That is different than a lease. This is actually a purchase and a loan. So there's no HST on a loan payment. And let's put in the next interest. So we've got a couple of options here too. We could just put this to interest right here. So we could just put this to interest expense, but this is a different type of interest. This is not interest for like a credit card or a revolving credit line. The interest here is an agreement over a long period of time, longer than 1 year. So some people might want to see this interest on a different line on their profit and loss. Not everybody, this is subjective, but one of those options for those interest on those longer loans, like a mortgage interest or this 7-year financing interest, you might want to put this interest expense to long-term debt interest, or LTD. So we're going to use the interest long-term debt for this example. The debt is longer than a year, so this one's 7 years. And so the interest here is $184.77, and that's also out of scope. Well, exempt. This is an expense entry, so exempt, out of scope, doesn't really matter. And you can see that this split transaction, which is a shortcut screen from the bank feed, is helping us know that we've allocated all of the payment. And if we needed more lines, we could add more lines. So I'm going to go ahead and say split and post. And now let's take a look at what it did the big screen way. So we'll go to the last thing we entered. If you were going to do it the big screen way, this is what it would look like in the big screen way. So now we have cleared the bank feeds for June. Now it's the end of the month. We still have a statements folder. We've got some more work to do. The next thing I like to do is reconcile all of the bank accounts that I have statements for. Let's go ahead and reconcile, and let's see what statements we have. Now, the next one is the Square dashboard. We are going to reconcile the Square and the Moneris clearing accounts. But first of all, let's make sure that our bank reconciles. So the first one here is the Canada Bank Chequing, and we have all of the information we need to reconcile. So let's come on over. We did crack it open without the statement, just to when we were trying to solve our lonely singles. So we can actually go up to this edit info, and we can change that ending balance to the ending balance on the statement here. So it's $7,081.36, 7081.36, and that is June. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And just a note, not all statements have it nice at the top. I know, for example, TD, you've got to scroll all the way down and just visually see what the closing balance is in the middle of the statement. So that's just a side note. And disappointingly, it's showing a difference of 1341.47. So now we've got to figure out why it's showing a difference. So the first thing I like to do is just sort of scan for any uncleared items. I call them white lines. So I'm scanning for white lines. I call them white lines because if it's uncleared with a check, there's a bright white line. So that's why I'm calling them white lines. So I'm going to look to see for any uncleared items or white lines, and I don't see any. So another thing that we can do is we can sort of search up that number, which it was 1341.47. And we actually see that there is a bill payment dated June 25th for a bill that was dated June 23rd. So that's a clue. If we do a Control F, even one comma, because it's searching text, 341.47, there are a couple of items. So obviously there's the first one, and we're jumped down and it shows us that there's one right here. It usually isn't just one thing, so it's a celebration where you can find it quickly, but that's why I use search, because you never know. If it's just one thing, you might be able to find it. Now, what happened here is QuickBooks got confused. And so this is a great illustration of, even though the bank feed clearing that checks these off for us facilitates and makes our bank reconciliation nice and quick, it can sometimes have little brain farts for different reasons. And this is why seeing the date that we have the transaction in QuickBooks and seeing the date that it cleared is very helpful. Because technically what QBO does when we go to open up the reconciliation is it will show us all of the transactions dated June 30th or before, and will only click off for us, it's usually smart enough, only clicks off things that have cleared June 30th or before. And in this case, it had a little bit of a brain fart and didn't unclick it. That doesn't happen very often, but it happens. So when we unclick this one item that actually cleared not on this statement, remember, a bank reconciliation is two-part. The first part is making sure that everything on this statement is in the bookkeeping and is checked off as saying on the statement. And then the second part of that bank reconciliation is making sure that everything in the bookkeeping is on the statement. And if it is not on the statement, we have to decide, are we okay with that? So if there is something that is double entered, there is an example of a white line that we're not okay with, and we have to fix it. We've done that in prior videos. And then there are white lines or uncleared items that we are okay to leave there. So for example, a check that was written June 25th, clearing on July 3rd, we know that's going to be on the next bank statement. So we are okay with this white line. And there are no other white lines on this bank reconciliation for us to solve. So I am glad actually that QBO did have that little brain fart. It usually doesn't click this off. It usually recognizes that the statement is June 30th and it doesn't click off anything past June 30th, but it can. And it's important to know that it can happen. And that is one of those checks when your difference is off and you can't quite figure out why it might not be working. You want to check that all of the clear dates that are gray are on or before the statement date, and any of those clear dates that are after the statement date are unclicked off. So that is it for the Canada Bank checking. Let's go ahead and see what the next statement is. Next statement here is the Canada Bank savings. So not much going on in the Canada Bank savings account. There is one transaction. It's going to be a quick and easy reconciliation. And I say always reconcile the statements whether there's something going on or not. So even do the little ones. Even do the ones that have no activity, because not only are we making sure that everything on the statement is in the bookkeeping, we're making sure that everything in the bookkeeping is on the statement. So we might have, even if the statement says no activity, if we've accidentally posted something to that account, reconciling is like, yep, and we didn't put any activity in there either. So even for the smaller statements or the no activity statements, you want to reconcile those every month. So we're going to go to Canada Bank savings, and the ending balance was 1,000. And that ended on June 30th. We're going to start reconciling. And quick and easy, finish now. So that was nice and done. Let's go ahead and pull up the next one. So that's the Moneris statement. We were just looking at that. We are going to reconcile the POS clearing account and the square clearing, but we're going to do that after we have reconciled all of the statements. So here we got the CIBT line of credit. Let's open that one up. So our CIBT line of credit, there's no payment notes on this one, but we do have the new balance that we can pop in and make sure that everything is in. So the statement ending balance was 10,728.43. And the statement closing date actually is July 4th, so it's not June 30th. I'm just going to pull that over so you can see. I got the statement date right here, and then I got the balance right here. So let's go ahead and start reconciling. And it's 0. Everything's in. QBO has checked everything off. Nice and quick. Finish now. And we're going to go ahead and hit done. What I found interesting is that the last time I reconciled, it asked, do you want to attach the statement to the reconciliation? And these last few that I just did not offer that. I do like to do it. So if we go to history by account, this is where we can attach the statements. I do like attaching the statements for reference. If the bank statements are being pulled in through QBO from a connected bank feed, it attaches them for you, so you don't have to do any extra work there. And it doesn't actually affect the bookkeeping whether you have the statement attached or not. But I would say definitely doing the ones at year end so that the tax preparer or accountant on file, if they have access, it's right there for them and it keeps everything all together. So that is it for clearing the bank feeds and reconciling the bank statements. Next, what we get to do is we get to reconcile the POS clearing account and reconcile the Square clearing account.